right, everyone, thank you so much for being here for today's webinar. My name is Emily Spranger. I'm an academic trainer in the Center for Teaching and Learning, and we're very happy to have one of our own NCU faculty presenting today, resilience and its importance to online students, Dr. Mary Dershvisky. I wanted just a couple of housekeeping items before we move forward. She is going to prompt you to answer some questions throughout her presentation. So feel free to use the chat during that time. When you do use the chat, there is a drop-down box in there that has a all panelists and attendees option. So feel free to select that if you want everyone to see your comments in the chat. Otherwise, all of the other questions are going to be put in the Q&A, and we will go ahead and address those at the end of the presentation. So I think that addresses most of the housekeeping items. Oh, brief reminder, we are recording this webinar, and I will post it in the CTL webinar section of LibGuides. And with that being said, I am going to pass this over to Dr. Dershvisky.
Thank you very much, Emily. I hope you can all hear me. A little bit voice impaired. I got to warn you, I am fighting the extreme dry weather conditions here where I live in the beautiful North Country of Flagstaff, Arizona, where today we're up to high 60s. It's a little bit overcast, but spring has sprung. Very happy to welcome you. I have been with NCU since about 2004, and my areas include research methods, serving on dissertation committees, statistics, qualitative research, accounting and finance courses I teach. So those are all great fun for me. I very much enjoy teaching them. And with that, we will be discussing today resilience and its importance to online students. And I want to give you a little bit of a, I don't know if I'd call it a disclaimer necessarily, but when I talk about online students, I'm talking about very broadly. Many of you perhaps are adjuncts, and so you teach at other places in addition to NCU. So what I'm about to share may apply not only to NCU, but to other schools as well. So I hope that's okay. And I always like to give a roadmap. I do this for my students when I do webinars. What are we going to talk about today? So we're going to talk about 4 topics, basically. What is resilience? What, excuse me, what does this term mean? And then I want to discuss with you some challenges that you may have seen with your own online students with regard to resilience in 4 areas. Their individual characteristics, technology, communication, and assessment. And then I want to talk about some solutions, some ways that you can help them to build their resilience muscles, so to speak, in the last 3 areas in particular. Probably the first is also covered, but in particular, technology, communication, and assessment. And then I want to end with kind of a peek in the future. You know, I mentioned I'm a researcher. So as a researcher, if you do research, you know, we're always learning. You know, I like to tell my students we're going to learn for as long as we're alive. So why not enjoy that journey like you see in that beautiful picture? So what can we still continue to learn, whether it's through formal research, through our own investigations, about this characteristic called research, so that we can best help our students. So let's get going. And I'd like for you to tell me, and Emily, I appreciate your helping me. I've closed out my chat box. When you think about the word resilience, what comes to mind? What words come to mind? Just free associate and share them with us in the chat box, if you would.
And I'll just give them a second while everyone thinks about that word and what resilience might mean. Feel free to post in the chat or the Q&A if that happens.
Okay.
Oh, someone's raised their hand.
And Emily, I'm sorry to say your audio is coming through fuzzy for me. I do not know why. I hope you can hear me.
So sorry, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, I can hear you better now. Sorry about that, but I did want to cue you that I couldn't hear.
Thank you. I have, is it Shad Bailey? Are you able to speak?
Yes.
Would you like to talk about, you raised your hand, would you like to say a descriptor that comes to mind for resilience?
When we have resilience, what we're trying to do is make sure that students stick to it and get through it.
Students stick to it and get through it, just in case you didn't hear it
I
quite
was
as well.
not able, Shad, unfortunately, to hear you, so I appreciate the repeat, Emily.
Absolutely. Stick to it and get through it. Resilience.
I like
Thank
it.
you.
I like that. I ought to have that on a bumper sticker. I like that.
Absolutely. Anybody else want to share their comments about resilience in the chat before we move forward? Oh, something in Q&A. Toughness.
Yeah, toughness, yeah.
When I think about resilience, I think about persevering.
Perseverance. Yep, definitely.
And I have Derek. Derek, you should be allowed to speak if you can unmute. Sorry.
Oh, well, I need a translator. I have cats, so I need a translator.
Resilience means to bounce back from a traumatic event. It's to develop ways to develop a tough outer skin, whether it's through a support system, family members, or even taking a journey for yourself. This is my topic for my dissertation. I'm writing about transgender intimate partner violence using resilience theory, stress inoculated to be exact. So
I like that definition so much, Derek. Now, do I give your
that's what resilience means to me.
Do I give your dog credit for that, or you? Because that's a
that was my golden doodle.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe the golden doodle was validating what Derek said, because I like that very much. Those are good definitions. How about if we move on? You'll see how well you all did. Have you heard the term grit? Grit. Some of you may know the old classic Western True Grit with John Wayne, but grit. You mentioned these flexibility. You know, I always like to tell students, always good to have a plan B. And we'll talk about that when we talk about challenges of technology, but bounce back. You know, Garmezi in 2004 also had, I think, what I think is a quotable quote. Do you succumb or do you surmount? Overcoming challenges. And I think the last two also kind of relate to, excuse me, there's always going to be risk taking in life, but a willingness, you know, differentiating between good risks and bad risks, but a willingness to take those good risks. No pain, no gain, right? Sometimes the risk will help you uncover strengths in yourself that you didn't know you had. So I think you all did very, very well in brainstorming what this characteristic of resilience is about. So let's get into the second bullet point, some of the challenges. And I'll start with challenges with regard to kind of student mindsets, student habits. Gray talks about neediness, noticing in 2015 a heightened neediness of students. And I think the second bullet point kind of gets at it. I've certainly seen this in my classes. I don't know if you've seen this in yours. Just tell me what to do and how to do it. You know, tell me exactly, step by step by step, like the second to last bullet point. You know, I always know I've got a student in this mindset when they ask if they can share a solution, an assignment solution in advance with me. And I say, well, sure. But so they'll share it, but then they'll say, is this what you wanted? And I kind of think to myself, well, the idea is to empower you to decide what you're going to learn. It's not what I wanted. Gray talks about, in regard to these, low frustration tolerance, easily giving up. He calls that being helicopterized. And I'm sure we've all seen the fourth one, and that's kind of the graphic. Oh gosh, any grade less than an A, oh, that's catastrophic. I've seen students fall apart if they got even, not like this guy even in the graphic, but a B plus. It's just absolutely the end of the world, you know? I think the last bullet point again kind of relates to risk taking. You know, mistakes in theory teaches us this. Mistakes can be a wonderful learning experience. I got to tell you all, the lessons that stand longest with me in my life is where I have had to undo mistakes and redo them. Number one, I learned something about my own resilience and my own bounce backness, if that is a word. But I also remember the lesson, frankly, a lot better than if I've got something done right the first time. But many students fear making mistakes. It's that perfectionism, I think, ingrained in them, you know? So these are some of our challenges that we face in terms of the mindsets that students may bring to the online classroom. Technology, where do we get started? I've had days like this graphic. I don't know about you guys, but I think one of the biggest challenges is we know how quickly technology can change, whether it's hardware or software. And then suddenly your computer may not be compatible with certain things. I found out on my Mac that when I wanted to put a background behind me when I wanted to be on screen in Zoom, that I had to upgrade to the absolute latest version, uh, of the Apple, the Apple software to do that. Whereas it was working for me just fine for everything else. So students may be working on older computers. Uh, a lot of schools certainly, and I know NCU does this, lets them do a checkup, a tune-up to see if they're up to speed. They may not do that, or they may just say, well, I'm sorry, I can't afford to upgrade to an older computer. The second one certainly rings a bell with me here in Arizona, and Emily knows this. Emily, you know this being a resident, former resident of Arizona. We are a very geographically diverse state. We have pockets of high urban concentration. We have extreme rural areas, and especially slightly to the north of me in Window Rock, Arizona, where the Navajo Nation is located, there may be very slow or spotty internet connectivity. So what does that cause problems with? You're seeing the second to the last two bullet points. Students may have trouble staying on live sessions. If you run live webinars, they may get kicked off repeatedly. They may have trouble playing videos. You know, we know videos, including videos of yourself or of, lessons you record, or even YouTube videos. That's a good best practice to include a variety of learning activities, right? But if students are working on outdated technology, they may not be able to access them and become frustrated. Microsoft Word and Excel, even though those are kind of, we may say standard, they come with Microsoft Office, they come with Microsoft Home, and Excel and Word tend to be used most often in my informal experience for assignments or for, accounting and finance courses they use, for statistics courses. But some students may not have that. I still have students who are working on Macs, but they don't have Word. They have, I forget what it's called, the Mac equivalent of that. And it may mess up their margins and their content. So those are some challenges of technology. First-time online students, or look at the third bullet point. You may have students transferring from another school where the LMS was very different. So suddenly, it's like finding yourself in a new city without a map and having to get somewhere without knowing how to navigate there. That may be challenging. First-time online students, they may not have had an orientation. I'm sure we would all agree, excuse me, learning how to learn in an online classroom takes some practice and some accommodation. If they haven't had that and they're coming in straight from a typical face-to-face classroom, quite an adjustment. I can tell you the fourth bullet point, don't get me started. Macs versus PCs, there has been some standardization, thankfully, in terms of, let's say, Microsoft Word, but there are still some differences. And a student working on a Mac where the classroom may have been set up as a PC can experience those differences and sometimes obstacles and may get frustrated. The next two bullet points relate to tech help. We are very lucky, and I will say, and I'm not saying this to kiss up to NCU, I swear, Emily, but my experience is NCU's tech support is very good. When I call, I get an answer. When I file a ticket, I get an answer. It always helps me. I may have to follow up with a quick question, but they are very patient with me. Unfortunately, and again, I'm not going to call out any schools or name names of schools, That's not the case. I know one school notoriously, and do not ask me to identify it, shuts down. There's no tech support on the weekend. Well, duh, when do most students work on their online courses if they're busy working adults? Not fair. Students will, of course, get frustrated. I don't blame them. As Bill Draves, who runs the Learning Resources Network, a wonderful consortium in the Midwest, I'm trying to remember where in Wisconsin that is, and I'm blanking at the moment, but it's located in Wisconsin, River Falls, Wisconsin, has written several books. And he very memorably says, now don't get this wrong, so I'll quickly explain this one. He says the instructor should not have to play help desk. Notice he's not saying, I'm not going to help you. If I'm the instructor, go call tech support. I'm not going to help you. Of course, I help my students. You're going to help my students to the best of your ability. But unless you're in IT, I'm not offending you, I don't think, I hope, when I say you may not know some of the intricacies of the particular tech support challenge that the student is facing. So ideally, and this is what Draves was getting at, you will help them to the best of your ability. If it's something you know how to do, sure. I've done this, you've done this, I bet. Jump on Zoom with them, call them up, walk them through it. But you should not be expected, unless you're in IT, to understand all those nuances. So by being able to refer them to consistent and continually available tech support like we have here, that frees you up to concentrate on the content of what you're teaching. The last one, I can only tell you a horror story. And this happened at a traditional brick and mortar that has an online component. A crash happened at the school's end. It wasn't at the student's end, it wasn't at my end. The LMS went down. Guess when the LMS went down? Right when finals were to start. And guess how long the LMS was out? Until 2 days after the semester ended. Imagine the nightmare. Imagine the nightmare. So, of course, students were panicking, contacting me as the instructor, contacting the help desk. So again, these are all, some may be controllable, some may not, but back to resilience and back to stress, certainly they may compromise the ability of the students to go with the flow and roll with those things. Communication. We know that coming to class, especially in an asynchronous online class like NCU, very different than coming online. You have to make your presence known. You have to maybe, contact your instructor or post your introduction. Otherwise, the instructor may not know if you're there. And that's related to students failing to log in. And some administrations at some schools will auto drop students who don't log in. And suddenly the student realizes, gets this stern message from an advisor, from administration, you've been dropped, and they panic because they didn't realize there was something they needed to do, like post their self-intro. The syllabus, and that kind of relates to the fourth point. You have undoubtedly heard that a good best practice of a syllabus, because you can't see them and walk through the syllabus with them as you would in a live in-person class, that you kind of, and I've done this, you've done this if you've taught live and in person, you kind of watch their faces as you're walking them through the syllabus that first day or that first night, and see where they're frowning or where they may look puzzled, and say, Emily, you look confused. What are you confused about? I want to stop here and let's address your confusion so you'll be okay with it. Well, you can't see them do that. So we have heard that a best practice and been told is to err on the side of detail. Try and anticipate, perhaps from your past experience teaching this course, what might they be confused about? What might they be stuck on? And just put it in the syllabus. But there's always a but, right? But that's good, but that's also bad, related to the fourth bullet point. Particularly if they are new to online courses, they may become so overwhelmed with this avalanche of text that they just give up and they don't read it. So that's certainly a communication challenge. Now, email. Okay. I bet this has happened to you. It's happened to me. I've heard faculty tell me about it who kind of commiserate with me. Mary D, you're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe this. I say, try me. I'll believe anything. They say, okay, I had a deadline for an assignment midnight last night. You know what? I got up this morning, logged in, having my morning coffee, having my breakfast. I've got 4 emails from John Doe, increasingly becoming agitated, and finally emailing me for the 4th time. You haven't responded to my emails. Why are you not responding to my emails? And John Doe, let's say the first email was 11:59. Okay. You know, an extreme example, perhaps it happens. But again, I think it's a matter of socialization. I think students may not realize that the trade-off of the flexibility of an online class is it's not like we're in a live session, you raise your hand, or you can go up to the instructor during the break if it's a night class, or walk up to the instructor at the end of class and ask your question. Sure, you will get an answer on the spot. The trade-off is you got to come to that class, like physically come. Okay. The trade-off here is it's more flexible. You don't have to attend a live class. And certainly we know a best practice is to log in frequently. We all do this. I do this, you do this, you know, log in. I tell them every day, first place I check is questions and answers forum or private messages to see if somebody needs me. But I mean, there's going to be that slight delay. It won't be immediate. So it may be a matter of expectations. All right, discussions. Again, I quote my friend and my colleague, Bill Draves, who has a delightful graphic in his book about footprints in the snow. This relates to discussions. I bet you've seen this happen. You post a discussion and you say, okay, your initial response to the discussion question is due by Thursday, and at least 2 replies to classmates or me by Sunday, right? Pretty standard with maybe some variation on, you know, due dates and how many responses. But there's just this hesitancy, okay? And we know it in a live class. You ask a question, nobody wants to raise their hand. This is the equivalent. Bill Draves says they may just freeze and it's Wednesday and you're looking and nobody has posted yet. Why? Because as Draves said, nobody wants to be the first one to make the first footprints in the snow. Just scary, okay? Again, a reluctance, you know, if they get stuck, to initiate some problem solving. You know, you have to kind of remind them, get a hold of me, I'm here, ask me if you have questions. But it may slip back into, no, just tell me what to do and how to do it. Lay out the steps for me. I've had students say this to me, lay out the steps, step by step by step, which is fine in some cases. In other cases, wouldn't you agree with me that you want to empower them a little bit? I'm not saying you don't answer them. I'm saying you give them some cues. We'll talk about an example in very, very shortly where I might say to them, well, have you thought about going to the library to see what's there about that? Forgive me, I don't think that's being unhelpful. I think that's being empowering of them. So, but they may not be willing or able. They may just give up and say, unless you tell me step by step by step, I don't want to do it. This last one, gosh, I love this one because it relates to the, I don't know how many of you all watch HGTV and House Hunters and House Hunters International. I love to binge watch that one. I got a subscription to Discovery Plus so I can binge watch that one. But I like to tell the story. I say, if you don't know that show, or if you do, then I'm about to bore you. You see somebody looking at 3 houses, okay? And they may look at more, but it's a half-hour show, so they look at 3 houses. And they kind of share with the realtor their impression of each house, and then they have to make a decision. You know, I've been watching House Hunters. I don't know about you, but I've been watching House Hunters and House Hunters International for like 5-6 years now. And I've never seen a house be like totally rejected. It just stinks. I don't know. It's terrible. But I've also never seen a house be totally ideal. There's always trade-offs. You know, the buyers, the prospective buyers will say, well, I like this, but I didn't like that. And I like this, but I didn't like that. So at the very end, they leave you guessing, which is a good way, I guess, to make a TV show. You know, you're kind of in suspense. Well, what will they trade off? to decide on the house that they want, what was most important to them and what was least important. So I think this mindset of more than one right answer is very important in life and making decisions. Some students may not be ready for it. They just come conditioned to there's only one right answer, and again, is this what you wanted? And if you present them with the option, not just an option, but really a life fact, that in life there's going to be more right answers than one right answer, and it may be a matter of trade-offs, they become frustrated. Busy working adults, they may have difficulty logging in and engaging. We know a good study habit is, and I tell them steadily chip away at it. It may not be feasible. They may have to be what we call weekend warriors. So look at the second bullet point. So what happens when you give a discussion where you say your response to the discussion question is due by Thursday? If you're like me, don't tell me this hasn't happened to you. You're going to get emails, help, help, help. It's Wednesday night and nobody else is posting. What's going on here? What's going on here? And look at the third bullet point. This has happened to me. So it's Sunday, all right? Sunday afternoon, I start getting help, help. You said I have to make 2 responses to get credit for this discussion. Nobody's posting. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? So that kind of thing can happen. Again, I'm not denigrating or making light of the fact we know life happens and adults get busy, but these kinds of things will cause stress, both for those who are behind and for those who, face those situations. What do I do? Nobody to respond to. And in terms of the responses, you've seen all 3. The third may surprise you, but I'm tough on that third one. I bet you've said a few great discussions. I bet you've kind of coached your students. It's not enough just to say, I agree or I disagree with Emily. Tell me why you disagree or you agree with Emily. It's not enough to say, good job, Emily. You've got to go beyond that and add some content related to the topic. But this third one, I don't know about you, but I started seeing it a lot, and I just kind of proactively deal with it. Emily, thank you. Your post really helps me understand what standard deviation is. And that's the end of the response. Well, that's nice. And it's nice that you complimented Emily, and it's nice that she helped you. But can you go beyond that and prove that you understand it? Maybe share an example from your own work or your own studies. So helping students may get frustrated when you give this kind of feedback. It's not enough just to jump in there and say either of these 3 things. Okay. Oh, we could do an hour on this one, right? So I won't. I know we're kind of at the half-hour point, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but I know this happens even in a live class. They just resist group work. They will resist due dates. What I mean by resisting due dates, I've had students email me, I wonder if this has happened to you. What? We have due dates in this class? Wait a minute. My advisor said that I could just do this class at my own pace. Or even worse, not bringing the advisor into it. Wait a minute. I thought an online class, we were told, or I was led to believe, an online class is flexible. What do you mean I've got due dates? But where the challenges, some of the challenges, I think, of group work that may be particularly in play and cause this kind of stress and giving up and frustration, coordinating time zones. That's hard. Emily and I were just chatting, about that there really was no ideal time to do this webinar. I'm okay with it. It's my lunch hour in Arizona. I'll catch up later. That's okay. But see how that, I was telling Emily, I said, at least you played to us Westerners. You didn't schedule this at 6 a.m. to accommodate the Easterners, see what I mean? So they may be, the second dash point of the challenges, they may kind of freeze up on you. Well, so what do I do? So what do I do? How do I get started? Tell me what to do. That's back to the tell me what to do. May not know how to reach out to group members. You may have to cue them. Well, have you tried creating a group discussion forum, a live chat, Skype? telephone. And do I need to even spend time on the fourth one? All right, I'll say, you know, I'm not being unkind. You know, you've gotten this. I've gotten so many of these, the tattling phenomena. Uh, Towards close to when a group assignment is due, somebody will privately email me, help, help. Emily, I'm just picking on you. You're a good sport, so I'll just keep saying Emily. Emily isn't pulling her weight. She's not doing her share of the group work, and it's not fair. It's not fair. I shouldn't have to do this. I shouldn't have to do Emily's work for her. And so there's going to be just one grade for the group. That's not fair. Oh, okay. Emily, thank you for being a good sport. This one, there, I got to tell you, and again, I won't name names. If you teach at various schools, you're going to know right away which school I'm talking about. There is one school, only one school that I know of right now, absolute firm rule. You have to reply to every discussion post. You have to. Most schools will give you a percentage, you know, 50%, 30%, whatever. And that's fine. That's fine. But let's say we're talking now about the schools that's like, you know, 50%, or some schools will say if there's 2 discussions for a given week, you know, make sure you reply to different students in the second one than in the first one. That's fair, you know, but sometimes students will not understand if they don't see a direct reply from you. Oh no, was there something wrong with my post? Did it not post correctly? Did I make a mistake? Why didn't you reply to me? You know, I like to gently say to them, you know, I say when we converse asynchronously, it's a lot like talking and listening, right? In a live setting. So what we talk, we don't listen all the time and we don't talk all the time. And I try and give them the analogy. There's nothing wrong. I did see it, but I read it. I'm listening. Maybe I didn't have anything to say, but that doesn't mean there was something wrong. I was listening. The second one, I've certainly seen, and I'm reminded of a former, because students sometimes get upset and email me with regard to discussion posts. The first bullet point, one of my former colleagues, notorious for this. If you didn't know him in person, you would get the wrong idea from his emails, from his, you know, if you were posting discussions, he was by email. Fine. Yes, go. So the question becomes, if somebody is doing a very focused discussion post or email, can that be misperceived as abrupt, cold, you know? But the other extreme is bad too. If somebody is very verbose in their discussions, are students really going to read it? We talked about challenges of text-based and easily becoming overwhelmed. Okay, so both extremes are bad. All right, challenges due to assessment. Again, both extremes. You know, we talked about this in the syllabus, so I won't. You know, if you leave out any, don't you hate math books, by the way? I hate math books that would say, therefore, it should be intuitively obvious that. Listen, it never was to me. I don't know about you all, but it never was to me. So again, we're told to err on the side of detail, but finding that balance. If we're too brief, students will be confused and not know what you want. If we go too much detail, will they read them? Okay. Again, critical thinking, many right answers. This is the one I referenced, by the way, a few slides ago, where I said I might coach them on problem solving. Again, I don't know your experience. Mine has been, if they have to write a paper, sometimes I don't know what to write about. Help. And that's where I kind of try and cue them. Well, is there maybe, do you have a job? Are you working full time? Yeah. Has there been some kind of intriguing problem in your department, in your school, and your, you know, wherever you work? Do you think that might make a good topic? Or I might say, have you written some papers in other classes? Have some been really kind of interesting to you? Even, I know you had to write it, but even if you had to write the paper, was the topic kind of, you kind of went, oh, this is not so bad. This interests me. Okay. Or I might cue them. Have you kind of done a search? What are you interested in? Teacher retention in rural schools. You know what? Have you thought about going to the NCU library and doing a search on that to see what others have done on that? So see, kind of helping them muddle through the ambiguity. And again, the risk taking, the alternatives, you know, to the trade-offs. So to help them with that. Please, guys, don't hate me. I found this graphic. I loved this graphic. I'm sorry, you know, and I get it. Listen, I chair a tenure and promotion committee. I get it that we have to worry about student evaluations. Okay, so don't come down on me too hard for that. I hope you're smiling. But again, kind of that mindset, I have to get an A. It is absolutely catastrophic. It's the end of the world. And they will do one of several things. They will give up in frustration. They'll get angry. They'll start fighting you, trying to, you know, get some more points to get into the A category. I think in terms also of, you know, review sessions, we can do them online. We can do like this Zoom session. You could do a Zoom session to review for a final project or a final exam online. But again, the problem becomes a mutually convenient day and time and all the connectivity issues we talked about. I don't know if you have been in a situation of giving proctored exams, but there have been some horrible, don't get me started, I won't even go there with you, but some horrible glitches with the proctoring service where students will get extremely upset. And again, I don't blame them if it's a techno glitch. And they thought they were stressed enough with the exam. No, they turned out to be even more stressed getting through the connectivity stuff with the external proctor. We've seen this, waiting till the last minute, papers and exams. And then suddenly the school servers get overloaded, excuse me, around deadlines, and they, you know, panic. This one happens a lot, or I've seen it happen a lot with auto-graded online quizzes. They save, but they forget to submit, so they get frustrated. Okay, so let's go to solutions, third bullet point. I think there is a lot of wisdom, story of my life, the graphic. I am reminded of the first one with a tech person who came to one of my live classes, Intro to Research. And I will never forget, students were, I kind of, you know, I hovered in the back of the room. I stood in the back of the room and watched and listened. She was a very engaging speaker, and she was showing them something on the technology, and there was some kind of crash. It was some major crash. I saw her not flinch. I saw her laugh it off. I saw her make light of it in a good way and fix it. The interesting thing, what I saw was in the students. They didn't panic. They followed her lead. They started smiling. They started laughing. She kind of laughed it off and made a joke about it. Let them see you mess up and correct it. It's the best. As some of my best teachers, I remember when they did that. As Grace says, we have to normalize being wrong. Like I said, I've learned more from undoing my mistakes than, you know, getting it right the first time. I think that's a perfect cure to that. Have to get an A, and a 99 is catastrophic because why I didn't get 100. The fourth one, I love this. I read this in a book, and I cannot remember where it is, but I know it must be in a book because I was talking about it with a colleague, and they said they do the same thing. When you send students to tech support, you know, I know they're kind of gritting the teeth. Oh, I'm going to be on hold for like an hour, you know, which has never, by the way, happened to me at NCU. But I know we're asking them to take that step to reach out to tech support. I always throw in this line, and please let me know what they say. And I think that is, I hope that is a very kind way of saying, I expect you to do this, and I expect you to tell me what happened. So you're kind of setting the expectation. They will fix it for you, but you got to do it, and you got to go through with it. And students do this, and very often they will say to me, oh, I'm glad I reached out to tech support because you were right, they fixed it for me. All right, backup plans. You know what I say to students at the start of every class, and especially if they report, which we've all had. I once had 3 computers crash in one day. How unlucky is that? But you know, you got to have that backup plan. And if they say, you know, oh, my computer crashed, I say, okay, well, okay, now let's make a plan for the future. All right. I know there's no guarantees, but let's make a plan to make sure it doesn't happen again. Do you think you can use a friend's computer, a family member's computer, a coworker's computer, a neighbor's computer? Could you go to a library? Could you go to an internet cafe? If you were counting with me, look what I just got, 6. I named 6. I'm not saying they're all going to work. I know with the pandemic, some of them were tricky, but I have given 6 alternatives. Again, having those alternatives. And to prevent things like that horrible finals week-long crash at the university's end, I ask students, they're supposed to use school email, some do, some don't. I ask them for a private email just in case I need to reach you with a technology glitch, so you won't panic. You won't think it's something bad at your end. You will know right away it's the university. You will know it's okay. You will know you will not be penalized. All right. Communication. Igor, 1996. Have we needed this in the pandemic or what? Cultivate a sense of optimism and belonging. We know, and I'm sure you have read books and you have attended and even taught classes on it is entirely possible to build effective online learning communities. We are all in this together. Reach out, you know this, so I won't spend a lot of time on it. Reach out to students who haven't logged in the first week or are, being AWOL. Model for them problem solving. Like I said, model that it's okay to recover from a mistake. Model that there could be more than one right way to do things. And I may have to choose. What would you do? That it's okay to not have, and very normal, one right answer. Communicate with advisors. Advisors can be very helpful to you in initiating outreach to students. Winner Circle. I want to tell you very quickly, Winner Circle. In my online classes, because I'm thrilled when this happens, because it tells me I must be doing something right to encourage, to convey the personal touch. Sometimes a student will email me, hey, Mary D, guess what? I got a job promotion. I have a new baby. I just bought a new house, something nice, but they'll privately email me. And I will say, you know what? That's so terrific. Do you mind if I share that with the class? And and they'll always say yes. They've never said no. I create a discussion forum called Winner Circle, and I post that. And before too long, very quickly, they're going to see congratulations on the new baby, on the new house, on the promotion. And they're just so pleasantly surprised that they may not even see these students face to face, but look at their classmates are reaching out to them to convey that personal, nice touch. Cyber Snack, Bill Draves, my friend does that. He shares once a week, he shares a technology cartoon to kind of make fun of technology. You got to laugh at it, right? Especially when it doesn't work. I have this discussion forum called More Words to Lead By. And I need to explain, the lead by is a play on words. At my home base here at Northern Arizona, I teach in the Department of Educational Leadership and Research. So leadership, leadership, okay? So I kind of thought of that play on words, more words to lead by. And I did not tell students, I never tell them I'm going to do this. 3 times a week, I start posting. I have lots of fun finding, positive thinking, stories and poems and quotes that go together. And I just start posting in there. I don't even tell them, but I'm always delighted. It proves they're reading when I start getting, nice messages back or nice postings. Wow, how did you know? I was struggling with that very thing. And that really, wow, that hit the mark for me. Or they'll say, do you mind if I share that with my fellow teachers, or that I share that with my students? Like towards the end of, and I try and create catchy titles to further make sure they read them. Like I have one I do towards the end of the term called It's About Time. It's About Time. And and I know what they're thinking, right? They're probably thinking, I know I would think this when I was a student. Maybe she's scolding me for being late on an assignment. So they open it up, and it's not that at all. It's a collection of stories about time management. Here's a quote I include from Bernard Berenson. I wish I could stand on a busy street corner, hat in hand, and beg people to throw me their wasted hours. Now think about that. Think about the powerful imagery that evokes, and makes you think about not wasting the precious time that you've got. So they read those things, they love those things. And again, it's just something a little extra to kind of spark, you know, I always tell them, if the only thing I've taught you is research, then I failed you. I hope I've taught you more than that. But you can also incorporate resilience into discussion topics. For example, you could say, identify one challenge, whatever that is, challenge with your assignments, challenge with your online class, challenge, and tell us how you resolved it. So that kind of goes back to the building community, okay? Assessments. I love this graphic, don't you? I mean, when I got the dreaded red pen, when I got that on assignments, I think it's all bad. Well, why can't it be all good? You know, I could be marking up Emily's assignment and say, Emily, good for you. I asked you to share an example of a correlational research topic, and you remembered that it has to have the word relationship or association in it. Look, how cool is that? Number one, maybe I've deconditioned Emily from red pen means wrong, bad, horrible, fix, terrible, but catch them doing something right. You can, in many LMSs, add a little short audio. How neat would it be to hear your instructor praising you when you're getting back an assignment and reinforcing what you did right? I allow revisions. Hey, welcome to the dissertation process, right? Every dissertation student, you know, it means revisions. And that's all part of, you know, I allow mastery learning, you know, if they did very poorly, you want to redo it for 90% sure. And again, learning from mistakes, right? Learning from mistakes. Consider, you know, Hutchinson and Jolie Loudermilk said, this cultivates a growth mindset. Like I said, we're going to be learning throughout our lifetime, so why not enjoy the journey? And then consider alternative assessments that might relate to preferred student learning style. Maybe they want to do a video. I've had students tell me they're afraid. I get that. You know, they talk about mic fright, and it's taken me a long time to get to this point where I hope I'm okay on webinars, but it used to scare me too. It takes a little practice. So if there's an assignment that requires a recording, you know, I'll consider alternatives. I'll say, well, do you want to do maybe a PowerPoint with speaker's notes? Would that be more comfortable for you? You know, something like that. So now I'm going to open it up to you again. We do have one other short topic I want to get to, but I think we're in good stead. We've got 10 minutes. So I'm going to ask Emily to please moderate for me, as you've been wonderful doing. And let me ask you to share, what do you do to help your students build their resilience skills? What do you want to share?
While I'm going to go ahead and allow Derek to speak. And of course, it doesn't necessarily have to be students help build resilience. It could be, you know, how do you build resilience?
Yeah, I like that, Emily. Thank you for the modification. Go for it, Derek. And if I can't hear you, I'll just let you finish and tell Emily, but go for it.
Okay. Derek, are you able to talk?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, you're coming through a little bit of an echo, but I can hear you. I can live with it. Don't worry about it.
Okay, so for me as a student and as a teacher, what I do is I call it's Experimental Fridays. And what I do is I close down my classroom and I bring snacks. And we just have like a power session where I'm praising my students on discussion boards. I always start with a 3-tiered process. I always state what they've done correct. And then I also give them modification to housekeeping tools. Like, oh, maybe you should read the textbook on this.
That is
so
awesome.
So that's what I do. And for myself too.
I love that. I love that. And I lost you right in the middle, Derek, but I think I got all of it. Experimental Fridays. I love that because you're doing exactly what we talked about. You are catching them doing something right. You are emphasizing the positive. I think that is fantastic. I bet they love that, huh? And
then I think his last bit that he did say is something about modifications. So recommendations for modifications in the future.
Yes.
Okay.
And
cool.
actually they love it because what they don't know also is that I give them extra credit points. They don't know. So if they're on a borderline of getting a C plus, I'll give them a B. Or if they're at a 99, because I have those students that freak out, I would say, oh, you're getting the 99, but when they get their final grades, they'll see the 100. So it's a way to boost morale too. I love the students live for extra credit, and that's always good insurance, right? Against, but you don't, that's unique. I love that you don't tell them. What do you do? Absolutely.
What do you do if they, I bet you have students, because I've had, is there any extra credit in this class? What would you tell them if they asked you that?
I basically tell them if you do your work and you participate, you might get extra credit opportunities. But I don't tell them where it's at. Because if I told every student, oh, on experimental Fridays, you're going to get extra credit, then the students are going to come in there with the wrong mindset. And I don't want them to be focused on the grade. I want them to come and mingle with other students and have fun with me as their teacher as well.
I love that. So the modifications, so that's like coaching them. That's like the mastery learning, right? That's like coaching them. What could they improve even better, right? Have I got the idea on that?
Yes. And what I do also, Mary, and Emily, is when I'm giving them the modification, I don't tell my students, like in your slide, tell me what to do and I'll do it. I will look at them and say, my one rule is this. You are the expert on your topic that you're writing about. You must act like, even though I'm the professor and I know the material because I'm teaching this class, you must act like I don't know anything about the topic. Blow me away. Wow me. If you make some mistakes along grammar or don't get a point correctly, I'll help you through it. But until that point, I want you guys to demonstrate what you know on the topic. Because if I come in and say, oh, write about this, do this, like you know, Mary, the students are going to be like, well, who is he? He's the expert. So why is he even teaching this class?
Yeah. Is this what you wanted? Exactly. But you are empowering them. You are empowering them to own their solutions. And I think that's fantastic. I love experimental Fridays. I wrote that down. I love that.
Thank you so much.
And also with experimental Fridays too, I do like quotes like what you do during the week. I have this one quote that says, time will pass, will you? And I have them analyze that. What do you think? So yeah, and they get extra credit too. They don't know they get extra credit, but I have my little notebook when I do grades and be like, okay, they extended this. So yeah, you could get over 100% of my course. I've had a couple of students who got 155 points in my course. So
thank you so much, Derek, for sharing that.
You're very welcome.
I love it. I love it, Derek. You know what? I'm going to, Emily, if that's okay, because I do want to allow at least a few minutes. I've got 6 minutes on my clock.
Yes.
I've got my 12:54. So I'm just going to quickly go ahead. There's not much left. I just want to talk to you about future research directions. What do we still not know or can understand better about this key quality we want for ourselves and our students? I think we still have a lot to learn about impact of technology, especially with changes of technology. I think, and that's why, Emily, I'm glad you opened it up when you said, what do you do for your resilience? I think we have to think about, what is that quote? The speed of the leader is the speed of the gang. I forget who said it, but I think it's a good quote. Our students look to us as role models. So how does our own resilience or lack thereof impact our students? I think those of you research buffs, you know, there's this thing called phenomenology. That's a qualitative method where we dig deeply into lived experience to really get in somebody's head, walk in their shoes, and experience what they experienced. And I think there may be much to be learned from doing these case studies, students who have shown extraordinary resilience. Can they share their stories with us? Can they tell us what were the turning points? What caused them to persist? What caused them to have grit? What caused them to take good risks? And I think that for the quantitative buffs, and I'm one, I come out of initially quantitative background, you know, we're always predicting stuff, predicting student achievement in education, predicting stock prices and performance in stock market and business. So we're always looking to ask ourselves what predicts what. So on the quantitative end, I think we need to dig more deeply, and we should. What variables seem to predict student resilience the best? So I want to end on this slide and again come back to the word empowerment. You know, such a strong term, especially for adult learners. They really should be, and Derek, you brought up this point, they should be in the driver's seat. They should be the experts. So to empower them with these real life skills to cope with things like risk taking, to cope with things like more than one right answer, to cope with things like having to choose from alternatives, none of which is perfect, but none of which is terrible. How do you make that choice? Whole person learning skills to me imply these things we've talked about. problem solving, being proactive instead of reactive, minimizing stress. And, you know, again, I have to quote, or not again, but I thought of the late teacher, Krista McAuliffe. If we can do that, we will touch the future through our students. So I want to thank you all for being a wonderful audience. My clock says not much, 3 minutes, but you know, last time I looked, 3 was a bigger number than 0. So I will kick it to Emily to see if anybody has any questions or comments.
Absolutely. And I did want to share, there were some comments in the Q&A about how the discussion questions with response and having to respond X amount of times each week to receive your points. Someone made the comment about how they found it annoying when people write a dissertation for their posts and then they have to reply, because then they have to go check the resources and all of that, and before they can reply. Now, I do see some value in the discussion questions and responses and replies. I've been a part of programs, and I've also taught programs where that was the expectation. But I do have to say I love the one-to-one teaching model at NCU, so I'll leave it at that. Yep. Anybody have any questions for Dr. D or anything that you'd like to make comments about? I will just keep an eye on the Q&A for just the next minute in the chat. But I love that your slide ends on empowerment, and I love that Derek
Thank you. So good to know. Thank you.
Absolutely. And it just kind of goes to show that through your questions as you posed, you know, what do you think of resilience? And several people said different things, but a lot of it does come back to, you know, having that sense of empowerment. And so I appreciate that. Well, no questions at this time. So I want to thank you so much, Dr. D, for presenting for us today. And thanks for our attendees. And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their afternoon.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.